Sahana bhavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Saha viryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. We'll chant the first two verses. Sargasthiti pralaya hetumachintya shaktim Vishveshwaram vidita vishwamanantamurtim Nirmukta bandhanam apara sukhamburashim Shri Vallabham vimalabodhaghanam namami Yasya prasadadahameva vishnuhu Mayyeva sarvam parikalpitam cha Itham vijanami sadatmarupam Tasyangri padmam pranatosmi nityam. We'll chant the verses we covered last time from verses 18 to 21. Tehendriyadayo bhavaha hanadivya pratikshamaha Yasya sannidhi matrena sohamityavadhāraya Annapanavikarasan ayaskantavadevayah Buddhyadinshchalayet pratyaka sohamityavadhāraya Ajadatmavada bhanti Yat sanidhya jada api Tehendriya manaf pranaha Sohamityavadhāraya Agaman me manonyatra Sampratam chastirikritam Evam yo vetti vrittim Sohamityavadhāraya. Okay, so we are in the section of the text about bodha vigraha, that this self is of the nature of consciousness. But please note, in and through bodha vigraha, the self is of the nature of consciousness, the sakshi, that sakshi nature will also come through, because sakshi is the doorway to pure consciousness. So even if this section we call it bodha vigraha or Chaitanya vigraha or pure consciousness, sakshi will still come through because it is that doorway to get to that absolute consciousness. So what is this consciousness? We saw last time that in whose presence inert entities are able to function and do what they do, that is pure consciousness. And in its presence, sannidhi matrena, just by being there, it's not doing anything, just by being there in its presence, everything is able to function. Like the sun, just by being there, everything is able to function. And when we are illumined by that, then we become sentient. Just like when a computer is plugged into electricity, it becomes sentient. When a phone is plugged into electricity, it becomes sentient. So the question comes, well, does that electricity, when we plug it into electricity, every month I have to pay my electricity bill. So the electricity actually, it diminishes, and again, it has to be refilled or recycled. But with the self, there's no modification whatsoever. In verse number 19, it says the self is just there. It's like a magnet. And in its presence, things are just drawn to it, illumined by it. So it's not actually doing anything. It's not even giving light. It's not even giving sentiency. It is just there. Its very nature is awareness. And because its very nature is awareness, in its presence, without it being modified even a wee bit, everything is enlivened. And so we said here that this means that the self is never changing. So the self never ever became jiva. It never goes through any modification. It is changeless. It is a changeless awareness. And then we also saw that those things which are inert, they appear to be conscious because of the self, like in verse 20. If the body or the mind or the pranas, if they were truly conscious in their own right, then they would always be conscious. But they are not, right? There is a time when the body is totally unconscious, like in death. There's a time when the pranas are not moving, they're not enlivened, like when we control it, when we hold our breath. There's a time when the mind can be unconscious. There's a time when the mind is totally sublimated, like in deep sleep. So if these things were conscious in themselves, then they would always be conscious. But that self is that which is ever consciousness, which even makes the inert, those things which cannot know themselves, cannot know anything else, it makes them conscious. And although there are degrees of inertness, they're still all inert. For example, the body, those who have studied Tattva Bodha, we learned that the body is made of tamasic elements, right? So this body is made of all tamasic elements. So it is jada, it is totally inert. And the pranas are made of rajasic elements. So to that extent, we can see some movement, some dynamism in them because they're made of rajasic elements, but they're still inert. The mind, because it's made of sattvic elements, it's still inert, but it can hold the reflection of consciousness. So the mind can actually know things because of the reflection of consciousness, and the mind can be dynamic. But remember, it is only because of the reflection of consciousness. On its own, it can't do anything. So it is all inert. They're all inert. They're just made of different things, different elements, or different qualities of the elements, rather. That's why the body is the way it is. That's why the pranas are the way they are. They're made of rajasic elements, and the mind is made of sattvic elements. But they're all inert. So he says, this you ascertain that you are consciousness. And if you are consciousness, and this body, mind, intellect are different from you, then they are not consciousness. Correct? So if you are consciousness and you are different from the body, mind, and intellect, then you are consciousness and they're different from you, so they are not consciousness. So therefore, ascertain again and again that you are the nature of consciousness. What you experience, what you go through is different from you. Then the student still has a doubt about the mind, I still feel that the mind could be consciousness. I still feel that the mind could be consciousness. So the teacher says, wait a second. Aren't you aware if the mind has left somewhere or if the mind is steady? Aren't you aware of that? Aren't you aware that maybe when I am somewhere, my mind left and it came back? Aren't you aware that maybe the mind is now steady? If you are aware of the mind's states and the mind's different movements, then you are different from the mind. So that mind, again, is an object of experience. That mind is an object of experience, and you are the subject. Now here, please remember there are two elements, right? And I think we talked about this also. There is the thought that if my mind has gone somewhere, I'm going to bring it back. I'm going to bring it back. That is the ego. That's the ego. Or if the mind is steady, I'm going to be steady. I'm going to be steady. That is the ego. We're not talking about that. We're talking about this awareness which is without a thought. We're directly aware of it. Directly aware of it without a thought. That's why it's called sakshi. It's called sakshi, which means sakshat ikshate. It directly illumines. It is not illuminating through a thought. It's not illuminating through words. It's directly illumines it. So that awareness is what we're talking about. We're not talking about the ego bringing the mind back. We're talking about that awareness in whose presence the mind went and came back. That awareness which is in every single thought, as we saw in Kenopanishad, pratibodha viditam matam, in every single thought, and that awareness which peeps as though peeps through the gaps of thoughts, that awareness which as though peeps through the gaps of thoughts, that is sakshi. And this verse is very beautiful, because if we understand this clearly, then one thing is for sure, and what is that? That we can never be sad. We can never be sad. Why? Now just think of this, okay? If somebody tells you you are sad, will you believe them? No, because only you know if you're sad or not, correct? If somebody says you are sad today, will you believe them? No, you will believe your experience. I know if I'm sad or not. Why should I believe you? Correct? Now look at the irony of this. If I know that I am sad, it means that I'm not sad. Correct? If I'm illuminating this sadness and this whole feeling or emotion of sadness, then I am different from sadness. So how can I be sad? So when we take these verses, we should also think what they can mean in our lives. This is a sad thought. Now it is illumined by me, the awareness. So therefore I cannot be sad. It is a thought. It's coming and going. It's there in awareness. But because of my ignorance, I put it together. I am sad. This is ignorance. This is ignorance. That us identifying with that thought is ignorance. Us separating ourselves from that thought is knowledge. So because we know we are sad, that means we cannot be sad. Then you're going to say that I can never be happy, because I know I am happy, so I can never be happy. Correct. We can never be happy actually, because we are already happiness, right? And why would we want to be happy? Because that being happy also is a very temporary state. If we are going to identify with happiness, that happiness will end and then we will get sadness. So I cannot be happy, I cannot be sad, But the glory of this knowledge is that I am of the nature of happiness. So I need not be happy, I need not be sad, I can just remain as I am. This is the glory of the knowledge, right? So now, today we are going to start from verse 22, because the student says, I still don't get it. I still don't get how I am aware of the mind. I'm not getting that. Can you just drive it home deeper? So the teacher says, okay, now let us look at it in terms of 3 states. So here, verse 22, Swapna jagarite suptim, Swapna jagarite suptim, Bhava bhavaudhiyam tatha, Bhava bhavaudhiyam tatha, Yo vetya vikriya sakshat, Yo vetya vikriya sakshat, Sohamityavadhāraya, Sohamityavadhāraya, Swapna jagarite suptim, Bhava bhavaudhiyam tatha, Yo vetya vikriya sakshat, Sohamityavadhāraya. So here, Swapna jagarite. Swapna jagarite means in dream and in waking. Suptim, this should be with an M, suptim. In deep sleep, bhava abhava, there is the appearance and disappearance, dhyam, of the intellect, Yaha veti, that one who knows it, avikriyaha, who is changeless, and sakshat means the one who directly knows it, who is changeless, saha aham, that I am, iti avadhāraya, ascertain this, that I am the one consciousness which is the changeless self that is directly cognized, which illumines the 3 states of waking, dream, and deep sleep, and illumines the appearance and disappearance of the intellect and its functions. That I am. So now let us just look at these 3 states. So this is called avadhāraya vivekaha, means discernment of the 3 states and understanding what they are, what the objects are, what the mind is in them, and then understanding the changeless substratum. So the first thing is, when we look at these 3 states, they get negated in each other. They get negated in each other. Like waking state completely gets negated in dream state. When I'm in dream state, there's no more waking for me. And in deep sleep state, dream state, and of course waking state, they get negated. So in deep sleep state, there's no more waking, there's no more dream for me. So the very fact that they get negated in each other already proves that they are not permanent, that they are not permanent realities. Because not only do they come and go, but they actually get negated. There's actually a point where we do not feel the waking state. There's actually a point where we do not feel the dream state or feel the deep sleep state. So because of that, these states are not a permanent reality. They are what we call a mithyā, illusory. They're illusory. The second point is that even the objects of those get negated, right? So the whole waking objects I have in the waking state, there are these gross objects. I have a table in front of me, I have a computer, I have a book, I have all of these things in front of me. And in the dream state, all of these objects they get negated. They don't exist. Now I have to take up another body, a subtle body, and I have subtle objects around me and a subtle experience. So subtle people, subtle objects, subtle experience, all of that. And in the deep sleep state, there is an absence of objects, completely no objects there. So not only the state is getting negated, but also the objects are getting negated. The objects, the beings, this very body, all of it is getting negated. Then what happens to the mind? So why we call it waking state, it is because indriyaihi arthopalabdhihi. It's because we attain or we experience objects through the senses. So when the mind goes through the indriyas or the sense organs to experience this world, that's called waking. So in waking, the mind is doing this thing. It's going through the sense organs and it's grasping the world. Then what is it doing in dream state? The mind unfolds, it folds back and it is creating. It is just creating something. Due to the pressure of vasanas, it is creating some subtle world and some subtle objects. And we know the mind itself appears as everything. And then in deep sleep state, the mind itself dissolves. It is absent. So this thing which we have, this mind, and you can say also our ego, mind, intellect, ego, all of this, it's changing. It is just, it's going out in waking. It is just within us in dream state creating, and then it's as though it like folds back, becomes absent, becomes dormant in deep sleep. So because the nature of the mind is changing, that also cannot be us. We might think that that is us. We might think that that is us because it's there. It's there in all three states. Yes, it is there in all three states, but it is changing in all three states. And every changing thing has to have some kind of changeless substratum. What is that substratum wherein the mind wakes up and the mind sleeps? What is that substratum, that changeless substratum? That is that ātman. That substratum is the ātman. So every change that happens, there has to be something changeless. Otherwise, change will never be illumined or known. So that which illumines these changes, it's not only the different thoughts of the mind, the different kinds of emotions that the mind has, but even the presence or absence of the mind. That is called ātman. That is called ātman. ātman, sakshi, Chaitanya, these are all synonymous terms. That is the reality. So the states can come and go. The objects can come and go. That mind, ego also, it can become present and it becomes absent. So all of these changes, they keep happening. They keep happening. But there is something that illumines it. Yaha veti. Yaha veti means there's something that illumines this. Avikāraḥ, without any modification whatsoever. It is a changeless reality. Sakshat. And how is it sakshat? Directly, without a thought, without an instrument, directly. That is that ātman. And we also have this feeling of consistency, don't we? It's not that we sleep and then we wake up a different person, right? We don't have that. There in us, there is this I which is always the same. There's this sense of sameness that's always there. The body could change, the mind could change, the intellect could change, all things could change, but there is some semblance of changelessness, a changeless presence within us. That is the ātman. That is the ātman. So he says now, see that, know that, grasp that. Now, in the next verse, he's going to again bring to light a similar concept that we have seen, but he's going to just take it a little deeper. Okay, so in verse number 23, घटावभासको दीपः घटावभासको दीपः घटादन्यो यथेष्यते घटादन्यो यथेष्यते देहावभासको देही देहावभासको देही तथाहं बोधविग्रहः तथाहं बोधविग्रहः घटावभासको दीपः घटादन्यो यथेष्यते देहावभासको देही तथाहं बोधविग्रहः. So he says, therefore, tatha aham bodha vigraha. I am this mass of consciousness. What is this mass of consciousness? How do I know myself to be that? Ghatavabhasakaha means the illuminator of a pot. Deepaha ghatat anyaha. That lamp, that deepaha, which is the illuminator of a pot, is different from the pot. Ghatat anyaha. Yatha ishyate. Just as that is considered dehavabhasakaha, the illuminator of the body, dehi, which is the self, is different from the body. So know yourself to be the one self, a homogeneous mass of consciousness, which is the illuminator of the body and therefore distinct from the body. Just as a lamp illumines a pot, that's always different from the pot. I am that mass of consciousness. So what is being said here is this. So think of a totally dark room. Totally dark room. And in this dark room, there is a pot. There's a pot. Now, how is the pot illumined? What enlivens that pot? It's because the light shines on it. Therefore, we are able to even know that pot. We are able to experience that pot. We are able to see that existence of the pot. Just like in a stage where there are all actors and actresses in a play, if it's all dark, we cannot see, experience anything, ascertain the existence of anything. We cannot do that. But when the light shines on them, then we have that experience. They are there. We are aware of their existence because that light shines on them. And that light shining on them is different from them. The light shining on the pot is different from the pot. So too, how do we know this body is there? How do we know this body exists? It is because it is illumined by awareness. It's illumined by awareness. How do I know? How do I know this body is there? I know this body is there through a thought, right? Without the thought that I am this body or I know this body, I will not be able to be aware of the body. I will not be able to ascertain the existence of the body. I won't be able to experience the body. So I know this body clearly through a thought. But what enlivens that thought? What enlivens that thought is consciousness, is awareness. So that consciousness is that which enlivens this body, and it is different from the body. The illuminator is different from the illumined. So how do I know my body? because the awareness shines through my mind, shines through my senses, and I know the body. How do I know my eyes? Because the awareness shines through my mind, and therefore I see the eyes. How do I know my thoughts? Because the awareness shines, and my thoughts are witnessed. So everything is known through that awareness. Everything is known, grasped, understood through that awareness. Without that awareness, we cannot know, we cannot ascertain the existence of anything. Now we might ask, well, why can't we say that, this body produces the awareness, or this brain produces the awareness, or the mind produces the awareness? Because we don't have that experience. We don't have that experience that the brain is producing awareness, the body is producing awareness. We don't have that experience. But we have that direct experience that when you close your eyes, you're aware of your thoughts. When you close your eyes, you're aware of your thoughts. Even when your eyes are open, you're aware of your thoughts. We have that direct experience that there is an awareness of our thoughts. If we just tune into that experience, just tune into that direct experience, it'll be very clear to us that there is an awareness behind our thoughts. Very clear. So here he says, this is bodha vigraha. This is the mass of consciousness. Now, subtle point here is in verse number 15. So in my page 57, should be around that for you as well. The teacher begins saying that the knower of the pot, or the perceiver of the pot, is different from the pot. He uses this language. The knower of the pot, or the perceiver of the pot, is different from the pot. But here he uses the illuminator of the pot is different from the pot. So he clearly wants to distinguish and make sure that we don't get the wrong message. Because if we say the knower of the pot is different from the pot, right? If we say, or let us take the body, the knower of the body is different from the body, we might still feel like it's the ego. Because, oh yes, I know the body, right? I am the body, I know the body, I think of the body. We might still think it's the ego. We might still think it's an action. We might still think it's the, what we call pramata, the knower, and this is known. So we might get confused that maybe he's talking about the ego. So he brings this verse in verse 23 to say, I'm not talking about the knower ego. I'm talking about the illuminator sakshi. That which illumines the body is different from the body. Just like that which illumines the pot is different from the pot. I am that illuminator. So this is his message. So what have we seen so far? We have seen that this consciousness in its mere presence illumines the whole realm of matter. And how this consciousness illumines? Without change, avikāraḥ, without any change whatsoever, it illumines. And what does it do? It even causes the inert to appear sentient. That inert body, inert mind, etc. It appears sentient because of consciousness. Very much like the moon, we say that, oh, the moon, the moonlight is so beautiful. But remember, the moon doesn't have its own light. It's borrowing it from the sun. Right? Moon doesn't have its own light. We say the moonlight is so beautiful. In the night, it illumines everything. Great, but actually there's no such thing as moonlight. It's the sunlight. It's borrowed sunlight that the moon has. In the same way, we might think the mind is knowing, the mind is sentient. It's borrowed consciousness from the ātman. That's why the mind is like the moon, because it's borrowed consciousness from the ātman. And so that illuminator is also that same presence, same awareness amidst these three states: waking, dream, and deep sleep. Those states will come and go. The objects will come and go. Not only do they come and go, they actually get negated. They actually stop existing. Huh? It's not that it's just like a permanent come and go, you know, it went somewhere. No, it's not that it went somewhere. It actually stopped existing. A waking state stopped existing, right? So it there, that substratum, that presence, that awareness, which illumines all of these three states, which is beyond these three states, in and through them, but beyond them, that is what we call consciousness, bodha vigraha. That is your real nature. That is tvam. That is your real nature. Huh? So now the student says, okay, now I'm getting a glimpse of who I am. I am that awareness. I'm getting a glimpse of it. But one thing puzzles me, the student says. One thing puzzles me. What is that thing? Well, how am I of the nature of bliss? Why are you taking me on this ride of I am pure consciousness, pure consciousness? Is this all a waste of time? Why are you taking me on this route? And the teacher says, remember, because this consciousness is bliss. This consciousness is bliss. That's why I'm taking you on this route. And everybody is only seeking bliss. But you yourself are the nature of bliss, and I will show it to you. This is what the teacher says. Okay. So what does he say? Verse number 24. Putravittadayo bhavaha. Putravittadayo bhavaha. Yasya sheshataya priyaha. Yasya sheshataya priyaha. Drashta sarva priyatamaha. Drashta sarva priyatamaha. Sohamit avadhāraya. Sohamit-avadhāraya. Putravittadayo bhavaha. Yasya sheshataya priyaha. Drashta sarva priyatamaha. Sohamit-avadhāraya. So, putravittadayaha bhavaha. Bhavaha. Beings and things such as putra, children, vitta, wealth, yasya sheshataya, the one for whose sake priyaha, they are dear, drashta, that seer, sarva priyatamaha, is the dearest of all. Saha aham iti, that I am. Avadhāraya, ascertain. Know yourself to be the one for whose sake beings and things such as children and wealth are dear, who is the sole seer and the dearest of all. That I am, ascertain thus and realize. Okay, so what does this mean? So this is a very beautiful verse. Now, if we get this verse, then one thing will happen, right? So if we get that we are pure awareness, what will happen? We will never be sad. We will never be happy. Correct? Right? If we get that we are pure bliss, we will never look outside for happiness. Huh? We will never look outside for happiness if we truly get this verse. Why? What does this verse say? See, first thing is that when we are looking for happiness, we're always looking for it in the wrong place. We keep centering our happiness in different things. So when we are children, when the baby is born, they center their happiness on whom? On the mother, especially on the mother. They hold on to the mother's sari. her sari or her dress, or they hold on to the mother all the time because that is their center for happiness. They don't want to leave that center. And then as they grow a little bit more, their center of happiness now shifts to where toys. So they love toys more than their mother. That if their mother tells them stop playing toys, they don't like it. They want to be with their toys. Their toys, their whatever they have, building blocks or dolls or anything like that. Their center of happiness has shifted. And then nowadays, as children grow up, from toys, their center of happiness shifts to gadgets. Huh? Their center of happiness is their gadget. It's their iPad or their iPhone, or this is their center of happiness. You better not mess with that. That is the center of happiness. And at some point in time, their center of happiness shifts to their friends and being liked by their friends. And if we tell them you cannot go meet your friends, you cannot go hang out with your friends, big problems happen in the household, right? Lots of fights happen because of this. And I'm sure everybody also fought with their parents because of this. Then they shift their happiness to the center of their happiness to getting a good college or a good education. They shift it there, and nothing should come in between that. They put all their happiness in that. And when they get that acceptance letter in the mailbox or now in the email, they feel very, very happy. And then they shift that center of happiness to a career, and they are just centered on career, trying to thrive and make themselves happy by getting a post, a position, a certain salary, a promotion, all of these things they're trying to do. Then at some point they shift it to a spouse. They shift that center of happiness to a spouse. And every time they shift the center of happiness, the whole attention is shifted. The whole attention. So now there's finding a spouse. But it doesn't stop there. Then it will be shifted to having a child. So all kinds of means will be tried to have a child. So like this, if we see how a human lives, human beings live every moment in the pursuit of happiness and shifting the center of happiness into several things and beings and thinking that they're going to find the happiness there. And that's why they keep shifting, because they don't find it there. They don't find it in their parent, and then they shift it to the toys. They don't find it there, then they shift it into gadgets. And they keep shifting and shifting because they're not finding it in that particular thing. And at some point in time, the person gets tired and says, I am not finding it. Then this verse will come and the guru will say, well, shift it to yourself. That's where you should shift it. That already you are. And that's only when one will find rest. Like we saw in Chandogya Upanishad, Disham Disham Patitva. That bird will go flying everywhere. Anyatra ayatanam alabdva. Not finding a place of rest. Pranam eva upashrayate. But only when they come to themselves, they will find rest. Now, people understand this, but they say this is all nice to hear. And people say, yeah, you are the source of happiness. You are the source of happiness. But I don't get it. How? Right? So what he's saying here is this. Now think first, who do we love? Who do we love? So we can love the spouse, we can love the children, we can love the parents, right? But why are we loving them? Why do we love them? We love them because they give us happiness. So we love the spouse because they give us happiness. We love the child because they give us happiness, right? So much so, those that give us more happiness, we love more, isn't it? Those who give us more happiness, we love more, right? Those who give us less happiness, we love less. This is very true. So we are loving people because they make us happy, and those who make us happier, we love more. Those who make us less happy, we love less. And we are loving them because they make us happy. Ah, so what does it mean? We actually love ourselves the most. We are loving ourselves the most. We are loving someone not for their sake. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, this is very clear. You know, Valkya says, a wife doesn't love the husband for the husband's sake. A wife loves the husband for the wife's sake. The husband doesn't love the wife for the wife's sake. The husband loves the wife for the husband's sake. Meaning, the wife is not loving the husband because he's amazing, he's great, he's wonderful. It's because he's making her happy. Huh? So the parent is not loving the child for the child's sake. It's not because the child is wonderful and everything. It's because the child is making the parent happy. So that's why we are loving people. So we love people because they give us happiness, but we love others because we love ourselves, because they make us happy. So that means we must be the source of happiness. We must be the source of happiness because whatever we love because it makes us happy, correct? But we love ourselves most. We love ourselves most because we are loving others for ourselves. So we must be the source of happiness. We must be the source of happiness. Yeah? So this is one point that we have to keep thinking about. This will not come maybe right away, but we have to keep thinking about. And it is the truth. It is the absolute truth that we love ourselves the most. So we must be the source of bliss because we only love that which gives us happiness. Therefore, we must be the source of bliss. The second point is, now, where is this bliss actually coming from? That bliss that I feel, where is it actually coming from? So just think about this. The bliss that we feel is not coming from this particular object, right? From a Vakya Vritti book. It doesn't have a bliss content because some people would be totally confused by it. Some people maybe feel happy by it. Some people would feel confused by it. Some people would not want to be near it. Some people want to be totally near it, right? So the bliss is not coming from this book per se. The bliss is not coming from a mobile phone and a phone or a computer. It is not coming from there because some people like phones. It makes you happy. Some people, they just don't like phones. They don't like computers. They don't like any of it. They want to be completely away from it. So the bliss content is not coming from that. Is the bliss content coming from a person? Let us say a child. It's not coming from a child also, because the child may make you happy, but your very child may make the teacher sad. Correct? And the child may make you happy sometimes, but may make you sad sometimes. So there's no bliss content coming in that child. There's no bliss content coming in that spouse also. Or the parents. There's no bliss content coming in the parent. Where's that bliss rising from? That bliss is rising from this spot that whenever we obtain something we want, whenever we get something we want, whether it is a person, whether it is a thing, whether it is an experience, when we get something we want, the mind becomes quiet. And when the mind becomes quiet, the self shines in its own right. And that is where the bliss is coming from. It is not coming from anything. It is because when the mind gets quiet, that self, it shines in its full form. Swami Chinmayanandaji puts it very beautifully in the book. I'm going to read this paragraph on page 83. He says, when tickled by a desire, our mind gets extremely agitated. And on fulfilling that desire, the mind becomes quiet and we experience a flash of joy. In fact, whenever the mind is quiet, joy or bliss is the experience. As it were, when the mind is hushed, the joy light, which is the very nature of the self, gets a chance to beam out. And the average man misunderstands that his happiness is due to the possession of the object. What a beautiful insight. So where is it coming from? Let us say I wanted to buy this book, I wanted to buy this book, I wanted to buy this book. That's a desire. I got the book. The mind is quiet. So where is the bliss content coming from? When the mind got quiet, that self beams forth. That's where the bliss is coming from. It's not coming from this. It's not coming from a thing, a computer, a phone. It's not coming from experience. I wanted to go on vacation. I wanted to go on vacation. Finally, I got on vacation. Therefore, I'm happy. Didn't come from vacation. It came because the mind became quiet and the bliss of the self shone forth. That's where it came from. Otherwise, that vacation would give bliss to everybody. So when I understand this so clearly, that the bliss that I am seeking is not coming from outside. It cannot come from outside. Outside things cannot have that bliss, because if they did, they would make everybody happy. They would make everybody happy all the time. The more that I have them, the more I would be happier. But that's not the case. So it's not coming from there. It is not coming from any object. That therefore the bliss is coming from the subject itself, the ātman. And that you are. So once we recognize that we are the source of bliss, because number one, we love ourselves the most. And we only love what gives us happiness. And because we love ourselves the most, we must be the source of bliss. And very, very direct proof of this, you see every night. Every night, no matter how much we love our dog, or we love the spouse, or the children, or the parents, every night, no matter how much sweet words we speak to each other, we leave everybody and go to sleep, is it not? I'm leaving everybody because I want to go to sleep. So we drop everybody for our sleep. This is direct proof. There's no other proof required. We drop everybody because we want to sleep. We saw this also in Chandogya Upanishad. The second is because truly, if we examine life, that bliss is not outside. Truly, truly speaking, if we examine it, we don't really need to go out. You just stay within and recognize the happiness within you. That's all. Unnecessarily, we are going on a wild goose chase. So that consciousness is also the seat of bliss. That is sarva priyatamaha, means that is the dearest of all. Saha aham ityavadhāraya, ascertain I am that. So what have we seen today? What we have seen today is that self, it is not only that ātman, that consciousness knows the different thoughts of the mind, means is aware of the different thoughts of the mind, but is also aware of the appearance and disappearance of the mind in the waking, dream, and deep sleep. When the mind expresses fully, partially, and dormant, that which is aware of that mind, that you are, that continuous, unchanging presence, that you are, that which never gets negated, that you are. And that self also, he makes it very clear, it is not the ego, it is not the ego, not the pramata, it is not knowing through a thought. It's not I am aware of my thoughts, I am bringing my mind back, I am doing this, I am doing that. It's not a thought. It is sakshat, it's a direct awareness. Sakshat, this word is very important, it's a direct awareness. There's no medium. That's why it's called aparoksha, aparoksha anubhuti. Aparoksha means there's no medium. There's no medium. It is just this awareness that's just pure awareness. Just pure awareness. It doesn't need any thought to know. It's just aware. And this is also that which is the most dear. That's why we should pursue it, because it is the seat of bliss. So more of the bliss aspect we will also take up next week. Okay, for now we will stop with this. Say the closing prayer. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.